Hi, everybody. My name's Emily. I'm from Birchal, and welcome, Joss. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Bell's Hot Chicken webinar.
Thanks, Emily. Good to be here.
Thanks so much. Before we kick things off, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders, both past, present, and emerging. So welcome, everybody. Birchal, in case you're wondering what we do, we are a crowdsourced funding licensed intermediary. So a lot of you might be here for the first time and you're wondering what crowdsourced funding or CSF is. So it's a relatively new form of fundraising in Australia that allows startups such as Bell's Hot Chicken and small businesses to raise capital from a large number of smaller or what are called retail investors, and also wholesale or what are also called sophisticated investors through an online platform such as Birchal. So companies can turn to the general public, often through their communities, to raise money in exchange for equity in their business. So Birchal Financial Services, that's us, will be the licensed intermediary for the offer. The information and all of the discussions that occur within this webinar are for informational purposes only, and you should always do your own research and it should not be considered as financial advice. We'd also recommend that you always consider the offer document and the general CSF risk warning before investing. So all of this will be available on birchal.com when the offer goes live next week. So without further ado, I'd love to hand it over to you, Joss, to do a short presentation. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box and we'll answer those just after the presentation. Over to you, Joss.
Thanks, Emily. Let me just share my screen. Guys, really excited to be here and talk you through a little bit in terms of Bell's, where we're at, where we've been. Like Emily said, feel free to shoot some questions to us. Love to answer them as many as we can today. Lots of people on the call will know Bell's. Bell's is a premium casual dining brand that started in 2014. So we're 10 years old next year, which is pretty exciting in the hospitality space to have a legacy that the Bell's brand has. In terms of what I want to run you through today, I'm going to give you a snapshot in terms of how our business performed in FY23, a little bit about how we're performing current state, and a little bit about where we want to take the business going forward. I will point out, being a webinar prior to the offer document going out, we are relatively light on financial information as required by Birchal, so don't think we're not going to include it. There's a larger offer document coming out Monday next week, Emily?
Tuesday
next week, the day after Monday next week. So look, let me take you through it, guys. So like I said earlier, in a nutshell, Bell's Hot Chicken is a premium casual dining brand. We specialise in Nashville-style fried chicken. Our business model is to essentially design, build and operate wholly owned venues across Australia. To give you a snapshot of where Bell's is currently trading, in FY23, which is the financial year that ended the 30th of June this year, we turned over 10.5 million of revenue from our restaurants. On FY22, that was up 62%, so a really healthy increase. From a profit perspective, we generated 1.22 million of pre-group cost EBITDA. EBITDA is effectively the operating profit that we generate from running our restaurants. So FY23, really good year for Bell's. We're pretty excited to be able to present those results broadly with you guys today. To give you a snapshot of where we're trading as of genuinely last week, Bell's turned over 272,000 of venue operating revenue. We had 5,900 total transactions in our restaurants. We serve 5,500 diners dine in, and we also process over 2,000 delivery orders. So you'll see from these numbers, we're pretty proud of being a very, very high volume business. But you'll also note why they're up on what you're looking at for FY23 is we opened Bell's Bondi Beach on Thursday 2 weeks ago, so 2 weeks, which is really exciting. In our first 5 days, we served roughly 1,200 customers. And in our second 5 days on the following week, we generated just under 50,000 of top line revenue, which for our second week of trading, we're super happy with, especially given that we haven't quite gone to the 7-day model yet. So giving you a snapshot of Bell's today, we're in really strong health. Talking you through our brand, which is a really important pillar of what we see the value of our Bells business being. On Instagram, which lots of you guys I know will be following us, we have just over 45,000 social media followers. On Instagram in October alone, we reached just shy of 200,000 people through our paid advertising, but also our organic content. We had, which is a mind-blowing stat that I only found out a couple of weeks ago, we had over 500,000 people view Bells or one of our venues on Google in the month of October alone. And from a review or a Google rating perspective, we rated 4.5 out of 5 stars in a consolidated level for the month of October. So I guess giving you this slide here, I think is probably the largest amount of information we've disclosed to date outside of our own business. We're pretty proud to share these numbers with you, but also referencing really we're a growth business. So where we see current trading, which is the middle column, we're super excited to continue growing our footprint and our venues from there. Talking you through a little bit of the Bells offer, most people will know us for our hot chicken. We've also got a really significant play around how we look at beverage. And then overarching that, we talk a lot about the venue experience, which at a business level is a really big part of what we see the value of our business being. Running you through the Bells food offer, no secret, Nashville style fried chicken is definitely our jam. We like to think that we've spent 9 years perfecting the secret sauce or perfecting how it is we go about doing Nashville style fried chicken. For those of you that don't know, Nashville style fried chicken is a Southern style fried chicken. It isn't necessarily hot. People think hot, spicy. Hot in Southern America means fried. So it's our sort of take on the market. But yes, definitely you can get very hot. The Bells menu effectively consists of 4 cuts, 4 sides, 3 sandwiches. That's us. We prepare and spice all of our food to order. We've got everything from chicken salt to the infamous Sex Panther, which if you've been to our Fitzroy venue, you'll know that we even bring a huge big gong whenever anyone orders Sex Panther. We serve it up in our iconic Bells baskets with branded paper atop a signature placemat menu, really evocative of the Bells experience. And we have a really strong focus on doing a few things really well rather than doing lots and lots. Our view is if we do a few things really well, we're going to maintain consistency and reputation through those thousands of customers we serve every week. From a beverage perspective, we've got a real passion for ensuring that Bells isn't just a fried chicken business. So we've got extensive bars in all of our venues. We like to think of our 3 sort of leaders as having a full bar offer, having both high and low options, which I'll talk through. And our hero being Bells Original Draft, which is a beer that we brew in partnership with our mates at Pirate Life. Complementing the chicken, we've got our high and low offer sees anything from a nip of Jameson for about $9 to Pappy Van Winkle, which is $90 per shot, very hard to get. You can get sparkling wine for $10 a glass. You can get a bottle of Cristal for $450. And I think this is a really interesting part of the Bells secret sauce and the parts of our business that make us really interesting, which is we can look after a casual couple going out for a date night right through to people celebrating a job promotion, an anniversary, a wedding. Actually, we've had weddings at Bells. So we own that occasion space really well, and we've got a beverage offer to make in that as well. In terms of the venue experience, look, our venues really do set apart ourselves from other players in the market around us, especially what we've done in Sydney in the last year. We like to think of our restaurants as immersive. We have full table service, which is something that differentiates us again. And we have Bells Hot Radio streaming through our venues. So talking you through a bit of that, we've got a view that we live in a sort of a diner vernacular sort of being the inspiration that we have for when we design our venues. We're really passionate about things like what's the lighting, what's the aesthetic and the functional consideration of the space. If you've been to Bondi, you'll know that we invest pretty heavily in a club level audio system. And part of that's about being that really immersive experience. We've got a DJ who runs a streaming radio, which is Bells Hot Radio. If you want to jump to it, head to bellshot.radio. Streams 24/7 the same content in our venues as it is online. And we've got a really fine balance that we love between feeling comfortable, feeling welcome. We love our venues feeling really lived in, but we also want it to be a space that guests want to come to time and time again. In terms of where we see, I guess, the USP of Bells and what makes us really unique, obviously being passionate hospitality operators, we think everything we do is pretty cool. Distilling it to 8 sort of key parts, and why we think we've got a really great opportunity to scale, knowing what we've learned over 9 years. The key aspects for us are we have an experiential full service dining model. That allows us to charge a premium on other chicken brands in the market. So if you look at a Bell's and you look at other chicken brands in the market, and lots will come to mind, Bell's will be more expensive, not necessarily because we serve a completely different product. Fried chicken on some degree is always going to be some degree of fried chicken, but we're really passionate about that full service experiential dining model being the catalyst to allow us to value propose what customers pay rather than price propose. We're really passionate that with almost 10 years of being established, we've been really perfecting our product and our model. We have an existing footprint of really high profile locations, from Fitzroy here in Melbourne to Circular Quay, Bondi to Barangaroo. If you're in Sydney or Melbourne, chances are you've come across a Bell's. That those footprint locations have been really important to our strategic growth. We have those 45,000 Instagram followers, which shows we've got a really strong brand following, but also really good saliency with our brand. Our iconic and immersive restaurant design that I mentioned before really does set us apart and surprises and delights guests. We kind of see it, if you think about kind of where you see casual dining in the market and where you see your neighborhood restaurant, typically your neighborhood restaurant, you might be paying sort of, $30+ for a main. At a casual dining restaurant, you're going to be paying a lot lower than that. Your restaurant in the suburbs is going to do table service. Typically, casual dining doesn't. And we've sort of got this, what we like to see, a sweet spot in the middle, where we're sort of the best of both of them. You get really great value out of coming to a Bell's in relativity to a restaurant or to a more premium option, but you get that really exciting immersive service as well. We've also got a proven model. We've proven to generate 20% plus venue EBITDA through our restaurants. There's significant demand for our brand, both dine-in, takeaway, lunch and dinner. And we've proven at volume. We already serve more than 5,500 guests a week, so we know that we can cope by continuing to grow. What you'll see on the right there is a little collection of some of the most recent PR. Bell's is obviously relatively active in the PR circuits, thanks to that sort of strong brand recognition that we've got. And those are just some of the ones that have come out recently. In terms of our business and revenue model, our business model, like I said earlier, is to source, design and open wholly owned. So we don't franchise, we wholly own premium casual dining restaurants. We serve Nashville style hot chicken, sides and alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. In terms of the revenue split, and this is a split of revenue, we're roughly 82% food, we're roughly 18% beverage, we're roughly 67% dine-in, 33% delivery and takeaway. And this one's skewed a lot, especially as we refine our model. We're roughly 60% dinner, 58% dinner and 42% lunch. So I think what you see here, what we're really proud of, is we've established a model that is very strong in the food, but we also have a really strong beverage overlay when you look at the volume that we move through. But we're really strong between dine-in, takeaway, lunch and dinner, which gives us the ability to trade right through the day and ensure that our rent dollar that we're spending is well utilised. To give you a little bit of context, and again, this is a pretty meaty slide in terms of our business model. Our growth model is effectively based on our Melbourne CBD and our Fitzroy venues here in Melbourne. What we've got here is we've got a chart on the top and a chart on the bottom where we've charted revenue, which is the green bar, and we've charted operating profit, which is the red line. What we're looking at here, what you can see coming up from especially FY21, which was obviously COVID impacted, but especially coming back further from FY 2019, we've managed to grow our revenue in both Fitzroy and Elizabeth Street significantly, but more importantly, we've exponentially increased our profitability. So if you look at these businesses here, and this is our growth model, at a stabilised level, we generate upwards of $3 million of top line revenue. And at a stabilised level and a target, our venue EBITDA, or the amount of profit we generate per business, sits around the 20% mark, some cases higher, some cases slightly lower. This model has been proven and tested. These two models are slightly different from each other. Obviously, Fitzroy is sort of an inner city suburb, where Melbourne's definitely a CBD location. So we know it works in both formats. And on the right-hand side, what you'll see there is the typical Bell's model. So it talks to things like the capacity of our venues, the tenancy size, the capital costs, and also those kind of target stabilised metrics based on revenue percentages there. What you'll note as well is we've got some site preferences, which is definitely moving forward in sort of standalone or high profile sites. definitely having outdoor seating and definitely an ability to serve alcohol until at least 10 p.m. to make sure we really are maximising the revenue opportunity we've got. But I think in summary with this slide here, what we're articulating, and we'll spell out more so in the offer document, is this is in essence the Bells model that we're looking to replicate. Opening Bondi 2 weeks ago, we've definitely ticked the box that it will meet the same level of revenue and meet the same level of profitability based on current trading. So we're pretty excited for that. And as we look to grow further from here, this is effectively the model that we're taking forward and growing. Talking about where we grow forward and also our current footprint, our key growth strategy in Bells is to open that proven model I talked about in key high foot traffic CBD and inner city suburban and tourist holiday destinations across both existing and new states. Our current footprint and what we've also articulated here is the top line revenue for them. It includes Fitzroy, which in FY23 generated 2.9 million of top line, Melbourne CBD, which in FY23 was $3 million of top line, Little Bells, which is our single takeaway only format that we've got in a small mall here in Melbourne, Barangaroo, which in FY23 generated 2.7 of top line, Circular Quay and Bondi Beach, both ramping up at the moment, but we expect both of them to stabilise revenue north of $3 million. Looking at what we've committed to so far, we've got a tenancy that we've leased in Adelaide. That very small photo of it articulates, and it's a beautiful shot of the sun coming down that moment, which is really nice. So Adelaide, we're looking to open early 24. Again, we're seeking target stabilised revenue there of that sort of circa $3 million point. We genuinely believe that Bells has the capacity for 40 plus full-scale concept venues across the country. We also believe there's a potentially smaller takeaway-only concept that we can continue to develop and roll out on top of that. We've got ambition to take Bells further afield than Australia. We've got real interest in the Asia Pacific region, where we know there's significant demand for established Western-style brands. FY24, we will open Adelaide, so that'll fall into the FY24 financial year. And from there, we're really looking to target our growth in the medium term in both Melbourne and Sydney, but also look to push our presence into Queensland. We have had lots of questions, why Queensland after Adelaide, why we do Adelaide first. It was really just the opportunity in Adelaide came up earlier for us and we pounced on it. It's a brilliant location. If you know Adelaide, you'll know Rundle Mall sort of runs through the middle of it. You've got kind of two parts to Rundle Mall. Our location's just a couple of 100 metres from the busyness of Rundle Mall, but also sort of in the pseudo cool, more owner operator kind of end of the mall. We're super excited for it. We've already designed it. It's going to definitely reference a little bit of what we've been doing in Circular Quay and Bondi. And like I said, looking to open there in early 2024. That wraps up my initial deck, Emily. Anything I didn't cover off? I think that's basically everything.
No, you did fantastic. We've had quite a few questions come through already, so we can kick off onto the questions if you like.
Yeah, awesome.
Terrific, and thank you so much for sharing. That was super insightful, and I know that there'll be a lot more information disclosed when the offer document goes live next week as well, so that was awesome. So we've had one from Rob. Are you open to a change of control transaction or just looking at investment capital at this stage?
Look, really good question. I think that for Bells at our current journey, we're really passionate about taking the next steps ourselves. So we're not looking to relinquish control of the brand outside the current shareholders at this stage. But as with any business, we're really open to where the future looks like as we look to continue to expand further afield.
Great. And at this stage, have you done an analysis of the market of the total store number potential in Australia?
Yeah, look, really good question as well. Australia is a large market, as you guys would know. We've looked at what exists in the market from a restaurant perspective, which is that sort of more premium category that we sit in. We've also looked at how many stores a typical kind of QSR or quick service restaurant can handle. There's definitely examples that would point us into the multiple hundreds of stores as potential growth. If you look at, the likes of GYG and other Australian grown brands, they've done exceptionally well over the last couple of years. I guess for Bells at this stage, we've got a passion to grow our footprint, firstly, through venues that we 100% own and control ourselves. and ensure that we've got that quality to what we execute. But look, from there, we're really excited about how far we can take Bells, both in Australia, but also looking further afield into the Asia Pacific region.
Yeah, fantastic. So what channel or online retail is your focus for the next phase of your growth strategy? And where do you think you're at in terms of capturing that full potential of the premium fast food market?
Sorry, Emily, what was the question? Was around online?
Yeah, in terms of your focus, will it be like the online kind of offering or more of that retail offering in store? So in venue, I guess. This was the way I'm interpreting this question.
Yeah, you know, I was just trying to work out what the real question is in there. I think
I can say the whole question if you prefer.
That's right. I think if what we're looking to identify is where revenue potentially splits between venues or restaurants and online. Bells doesn't have a significant online presence at the moment. We are looking to bolster that with both retail and merchandise. But from a revenue perspective and a growth perspective, we'll always trump any additional revenue from retail or wholesale or online sales with our restaurant sales.
Fantastic. We've had a few questions about why there were previous venues that might have shut down. Could you shed some light on those instances?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really conscious decision we made, and the two that have been in the last 3 years are Darling Square, which is in Sydney, and Tramsheds in Glebe, which is also in Sydney. Both Darling Square and Glebe were very small format stores. You typically call them quick service or QSR. And when you look at what that means, it means on a revenue level, we're only really able to achieve sort of upwards of 1 to 1.5 million top line revenue. That's still really good revenue. And for lots of businesses, they're really excited by that model. Our model was to invest our resources into growing much larger venues that allowed us to drive a much higher profit pool. We have no plans to close any additional venues whatsoever. We're really passionate about the footprint we have. And I think also from a business or commercial perspective, we're proud to come to the conclusion that we did that neither of those venues were the right fit for the Bells model going forward, as opposed to sort of having a model where we have multiple stores and there's sort of a variance of what experience you got in them. The most recent one to close, which is Tramsheds, was at the end of its lease expiry. Tramsheds and the precinct there wasn't a precinct that we believed as passionately as we do about standalone venues, which again is that sort of Fitzroy and Elizabeth Street or Melbourne CBD model.
Yeah. I mean, following on from that, would you ever look into creating a franchise model, or will all the venues be owned and operated by the Bells business?
Such an awesome question. And I reckon probably every quarter this one comes up internally as a question. Franchise is a really interesting model, and lots of times it's incredibly successful. I think ultimately, from a business or a brand perspective, what's great about a franchise model is you have people with skin in the game running their restaurant every day in a way that they're really passionate about. In terms of will we do it in the short term, we won't do it in the short term. In the long term, I can't speculate about what we'll look at as a strategy to grow sort of past the next 18 to 24 months of wholly owned. But we definitely see benefits in franchise. We also see really strong benefits in wholly owned venues. And at the moment, in terms of the model we operate, it works really well for us. And we're really comfortable. We've got a structure and a really great team around us that will enable us to keep running our restaurants the way we are. Like I say, for at least the next sort of 4 to 5 venues without trouble whatsoever.
Awesome. And currently, what's your store acquisition strategy and the fundamentals behind choosing the right site?
I'll just jump back a slide because I think I've got one that talks that a little bit more. So on the right here, we sort of very high level talk through what it is we look for and what we call a typical model. In terms of locations or site preferences, we really are determined by ensuring that there's a high foot traffic count, especially if we're in the CBD. If we're looking in suburbs, we definitely tend to look in inner city suburbs more so. And as Bondi's proved, we're very popular in those sort of touristy or sort of suburban tourist holiday destinations. In terms of our acquisition strategy, we work full time on this to identify new opportunities, and there wouldn't be a week that goes by without us looking at a couple. We have lots of really exciting conversations going on that I can't talk about here and now, but we are very active in the acquisition space. I guess probably the key thing for us is we'd turn down 99% of opportunities, not because they're not great opportunities, but because we're very particular now. We've gone through growing venues, the 2 venues that I talked about that we closed, and also now being really clear on what our growth model is. We only want to grow our growth model and ensure that we've got that really, really, really clear going forward.
Yeah, fantastic. And currently, when you're finding these new venues, is the fit out a big part of what you're doing and what you're looking for when you're looking at these venues, the potential to be able to fit it out with that beautiful Bells branding?
Absolutely. I'd say 100%, but probably 110%. We are really passionate that what makes Bells, in our view, really magic and the guest experience really unique is our approach to design, not just from a functional perspective, but how it sort of makes people feel, the aesthetics and I guess the considerations about that sort of immersive space. It is a really challenging task we set ourselves to design every venue from scratch and use the materiality in the way that we do it. It would be a lot easier to just have one set thing and replicate it, but that's part of the passion of the Bells brand and why people love us is we're slightly different wherever you come and see us. But yeah, to answer the question, Emily, the design and the location are really important for us.
Fantastic. So with your FY23 store level profitability, did this include the newly opened stores or just the mature stores?
Really good question. So this included a very small part of Circular Quay because it opened in a very late part. I think we had about 2 months of trading in FY23 for Circular Quay. But yeah, no other Circular Quay trading was in there. Bondi wasn't in there. Adelaide's obviously not in there as well. So we kind of look at that as, I guess, our baseline revenue to grow from.
Awesome. So can you say a little bit more about your menu and the innovation behind it? So a few people have talked about, the menu that you've had for a long time. Have you moved away from natural wine? Are you looking at changing the menu, keeping it true to this Nashville hot chicken, or are you going to be adding new items to the menu in the future?
Lots of really good questions there. And look, these are conversations we have internally all the time, but also we have these conversations with our guests all the time as well, which is always cool. I think firstly on the natty wine space, look, natural wine or natty wine has been part of Bell's DNA literally from day one. When the business was first established in 2014 in Fitzroy, it was kind of equal parts hot chicken joint and natural wine bar. Like it was always that kind of that space that it operated. We definitely haven't moved away from it. I guess from a revenue perspective, we wanted to ensure that we were delivering to the market that weren't just interested in natural wine. Probably the first one we did there was our beer with Pirate Life, Bell's Original Craft. And really what we've done is we've added to the natural wine offer. So we've still got an exciting collection of wine. Marilyn, who's one of our partners and heads up Sydney, is absolutely a natural wine fiend. And if I think if we ever tried to take natural wine off, she would have a heart attack. So we'll always be there. Talking through the menu and the evolution, again, we've got this really deep passion and a fundamental belief in doing a few things really well. We'll always continue to challenge ourselves on what those few things are. I think at the moment we're really passionate about ensuring that we continue to execute at volume because as we grow, we're executing more and more. We've had a lot of time spent recently on our supply chain and ensuring that we can keep up with the demand, both from a supply chain but a preparation perspective. In terms of the evolution of the menu, though, in the offer doc, we talked through a little bit more of the strategy around what we're doing with both food and beverage from a strategic perspective. But I guess overarching it, we're always going to stick to our knitting or stick to our baking, which is really great fried chicken. We're also always going to ensure that we're moving with the market where there's trends that would be foolish for us to not commercially be on the same page as.
Sure. And who would you consider to be your main competitor in the space?
That's a really good question. Look, I think naturally we fall into those two spaces. So if you kind of think at the top end, we do compete with your neighbourhood owner-operator restaurant. The reason we do is we're a neighbourhood brand ourselves, and we consider ourselves owner-operators because we are in our businesses every day and we're really passionate about looking after our guests. We also would compete, though, in the same market as casual dining and the more quick service chicken brands. I guess we'd compete at the top level on service and probably bar and the experience, and we'd compete on a product level with the people in the sort of QSR or the casual dining space. But we really do think that we sit between both, which is a great thing because it allows us potentially to tap into two markets. But it also means that we have kind of two sets of competitors, but also opens the market up to two sets of customer types.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. So in terms of, are you guys a standalone now, or are you still part of the 100 Burgers group?
Yes, look, Bells was part of 100 Burgers until around about 2019. 100 Burgers was a consolidated hospitality business that had a lot of different businesses in it. Bells, you'll see from the cap table that comes out on Tuesday. I was going to say Monday. On Tuesday, Bells still has a small ownership from the 100 Burgers business or the legacy business 100 Burgers. But across that, we're not consolidated as part of anything else. Bells is a standalone business with its own management team and structure around it.
Yeah, awesome. I've had a few questions surrounding sustainability and also ethical and humane sourcing of your ingredients. Can you speak a little bit to that and shed some light on how you source your ingredients, the chicken, all of those kinds of things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the scale Bells operates, supply chain is always something that we're looking to grow and evolve in. You know, we've probably doubled the volume of chicken that we serve now, current trading versus even probably 12 months ago. So we're always looking at better ways to source it. I think probably the fundamental for us is that all of the chicken we serve at Bells is RSPCA approved, and that's a really important part of making sure that we are doing our part for general sort of animal welfare, but also ensuring that we're working with Australian suppliers that we know we can go and meet with, we can have conversations with as often as possible. From a sustainability perspective, again, we're always looking for how we can continue to improve on this, and we've got some projects we're running at the moment to work out how we can better do that. Lots of businesses we're involved in have very, very large supply chains, and they work very, very, I guess, on a big global scale. What we're always trying to do with Bells is balance commercial reality around how we can be profitable in the right amount of profit, but also ensuring that we're doing our part for the communities and the environment that we're part of as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And adding on to that, are there any plans to obtain a halal certification to tailor to that demographic?
We are 100% halal certified.
There you go.
It's fascinating. It's one of the absolute top 5 asked questions on Instagram. And we are always really excited to let our halal friends know that we are. So yeah, all of our chicken 100% halal certified.
Yeah, incredible. So I know that it's a really key strategy for you to continue to open more stores. So why would you say that the reason behind this is that your growth model is expansion and putting up new venues rather than growing the number of customers that go through the current restaurants?
Look, it's a good question, Emily, and I think firstly we've done the second part first. So again, if you jump back to this chart here, what you'll see is that revenue increase from FY22, but also from FY19 in both venues. That revenue increase has been driven by a couple of factors. One is a lot more customers or guests through our door. The other is an increase in the spend from our guests as we've increased the level of service that we provide. So I think firstly, we've really looked inside our own business to work out what can we do in our existing venues or the footprint of our existing venues to drive better revenue and in turn better profitability to grow from. In terms of why we're passionate about growing, look, we firmly believe, and Bondi has taught us that we've spent a lot of time and energy and resource on growing a really great brand that makes a lot of people really happy. We're really passionate about people generally, and we want to look after people as much as we can, but we also want to share the love that people have with Bells and the affinity they have with our brand with more and more people. So our growth strategy is really simple. We just want to look after and make more people happy.
Oh, it's so nice to hear you speak about it like that. And I can tell that you're really passionate about the community, which I think lends itself to why you've gone down the crowdsource funding route to get more investors on board rather than a different form of fundraising at this stage. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we've funded the growth to date primarily through shareholder funding, a small amount of bank debt in the last sort of 2 years, but relative to our size, predominantly shareholder funding. The capital raise through Birchal, I think it was probably a year and a half ago, we first reached out to you guys and said, hey, we're a little kind of hot chicken brand in Melbourne, what do you think about a crowdfunding raise? And it's probably taken us this amount of time to feel really confident that we had something to really offer that kind of hardcore group of regulars that love our brand. We're definitely passionate about bringing them on the journey to ensure that, I guess, that sense of ownership that we collectively feel for our business transcends greater in the communities that we operate. And it's one of those things, it's always a tough one. It sounds super cliche talking about bringing your customers or your guests on the journey, but genuinely, as a hospitality operator, the greatest thing that I could have is a whole lot of people that feel like they own the venues they come into. It's like your local pub, if you go and they know what you want on tap, you feel that real affinity with it. And you're like, man, this is my place. This is cool. And I think for us, we're really excited to share that with as many people that love what we do as much as we love it.
Yeah, 100%. I know that you've spoken to opening new stores to cater to all of these people who absolutely love bells, and you've spoken about them doing them Australia-wide. Was there the potential to be going into Queensland? I think you'd mentioned that in the slides. And then also, what's the timeline that you'd put on it in terms of how many stores would you ideally like to be opening per year?
Yeah, look, really good question again. I mean, Queensland's an exciting market. I've spent quite a lot of time there over the last couple of years looking at where's naturally best for bells. We want to ensure that when we turn up to a new state, we turn up in best form and in the best possible location that we can. So we're really passionate about Queensland. We've looked at Brisbane pretty heavily. We've also looked further afield. So Queensland's well and truly on our radar. In terms of time frame, look, I've learned in hospitality, especially with growth hospitality, never commit to timeframes because they always seem to take a little bit longer than you think. But if you look at the fact that we've effectively sourced, designed, and we will open 3 venues within 18 months, being Circular Quay, Bondi, and Adelaide, we think that's a pretty comfortable growth rate at the moment without being too exaggerated. Anything faster than that, you can risk that sort of non-organic growth. What does that look like in terms of our ability to keep up? And those are all things that we've been looking at internally for a long time to ensure that we really are in growth mode and ready to grow. So I guess to answer it, Queensland, yes, please, let's do that as soon as we possibly can. I get lots of emails, so I'm sure I'll get more about other sites after this. But secondly, look, we really want to grow as fast as we can, but maintaining that absolute control over the brand experience to ensure that every guest gets that sort of trademark experience that we're passionate about.
Yeah, 100%. So I know that this has been a real theme of the webinar today about opening new stores. Is that what the bulk of the use of funds will be? And then also, will you be using it to pay down anything else at this stage?
Yeah, so look, firstly, there's no use of funds other than opening new venues. So there's no paying down of funds. There's no other use of the funds. Bells is a profitable business, as we've demonstrated, and as people will see when the offer is released. So we've got really good working cash flow in our business to enable us to keep growing. The use of funds really enables us to grow faster than our current cash flow allows. And effectively, what we're looking to do is grow new venues on the back of that, in addition to Adelaide. So for us, Adelaide is more or less funded already. We've got a line of credit for that venue. So we're really looking to use these funds to grow on top of Adelaide.
Yeah, fantastic. So I've had a few questions around the comparison between the takeaway only stores versus the dine-in stores. Would you say that there is a relatively close return on investment? What are the key differences you see there? And does it make more sense to open the smaller ones versus the larger venues?
Yes, so look, in terms of our current portfolio, just probably jumping back a slide, sorry, we hit the right button. We only have one venue that we consider a takeaway only store. So that's what we've called Little Bells. The reason we decided to have a diffusion brand for that was to enable us effectively to test this concept and see operationally what does it look like, staffing, what does it look like, what does the offer look like. We had an existing tenancy that was a small format store prior to COVID. And rather than Darwin Square and tram sheds and close it, we really want to look at what we could do to use it as sort of a test ground for future potential smaller sites. Our passion is 100% in growing the large scale revenue venues. So you can see there from a revenue perspective, it pales in comparison to what we've achieved in terms of our larger format. That's not to say there's not a model in there that can achieve more. We do have a belief there's a model in there already that can do more. But I guess from a capital perspective on return on investment, we by far outweigh the return on investment in larger format venues than we do on smaller ones. And I guess also talking to that reason again behind part of the closure of the previous venues is we get to use our resources in terms of our team and our capital better by driving a stronger return through those larger venues.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. So how did you guys survive during the pandemic, and to what extent did it impact your original plans to expand and promote the brand?
Huge impact over COVID. Like all hospitality businesses, we really had to rethink how to, I guess, manage our business and look after our team on a day-to-day basis was the first priority for us. I joined Bells in the middle of COVID, so I took over in early 2021. So I guess I was kind of part of recasting the net around what the Bells model was. We effectively used COVID to do a few things. We used COVID to step back and look at what had worked for Bells over that sort of prior 6 to 7 years. What were the learnings the business should be banking to create a really great model to scale from? We knew that scaling COVID was never going to happen, so we kind of had this time on our shoulders to work with. The other priorities for us were working through looking after our team as best we could as well, and really trading for the benefit of our guests as best we could as well. So Fitzroy traded literally every day that we were allowed to through COVID, and we really appreciate it. And I think our guests and our local community in Fitzroy appreciate us being there. Same with Barangaroo, we did the same thing. But I guess from us, what we took from COVID was that refined model that I talked to before. That was sort of FY21. We then got to really prove that it worked in FY23, which I guess is sort of why we're here today, which is exciting. But like every business, yeah, COVID was tough, really, really tough. But I think if you came out the other end of COVID in a hospitality business, you've come out stronger because you've learned a lot about how to manage your business and what it really needs and what your guests really think about you, because they either came back after COVID or they didn't. And for Bells, we're proud to be stronger than what we were pre-COVID.
It's such an inspiring story, and we love to see hospitality brands, particularly in Melbourne, thrive so well after COVID. So it's really good to know. Sorry to give you more questions about expansion again, but it does feel like everybody is really keen for you to open more locations in their cities. Perth hasn't been mentioned yet. Is there a consideration for WA?
Oh, the 100%. I mean, if you read the stats around chicken consumption, but especially affinity with fried chicken brands, Perth is by far and away the gold star in Australia. Perth or WA, they love fried chicken, and they love chicken generally. So yeah, look, we've had a few conversations with some potential partners and landlords in Perth. Obviously, being further away from, I guess, our nerve centre of sort of Sydney, Melbourne, and soon Adelaide, it is further afield operationally, and our focus really is ensuring that we can, you know, like I sort of talked about earlier, really look after the operations and the guests in the states we do operate. But without a shadow of a doubt, Perth would be well and truly up there after Queensland.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm sure we'll get some more questions about you expanding more. So as your number of venues grow without franchising, what will your organizational structure look like in terms of an ops and HQ support level? i.e., will your venues operate independently without a direct line to the exec team, or will they be supported by an area or cluster manager as an extra layer of support?
Great question. Obviously, someone passionate about hospitality, so I love these questions. But we've got a really different approach with Bells, especially in our current phase of growth. I'm first and foremost a hospitality operator. That's my passion. It just so happens I love growth businesses, but I'm absolutely passionate about being a hospitality operator. Our current structure looks like a head of operations in each state. We've got two amazing people, Nick and Marilyn, and effectively they have shares in Bells, and they are what I look at as partners in the business with me. And it's really important to me that at a venue level, our venue teams feel and have a relationship with people that actually are part of the bigger picture of the business day to day, rather than just line management. Really different as you scale. And, you know, in the time when Bells is 50 plus venues, that model is going to be more challenging. Not impossible. There's ways around it, but definitely will be more challenging. Our passion and the way we want to keep growing, especially in the next sort of 18 to 24 months, is to maintain that structure. We like it. We think as we grow, we'll need to add more support at a venue level, but we really don't want to be building a sort of a head office or a structure around us. Probably a couple of reasons for that. One is they can become complex and they can become relatively clustered in a sort of a them and us. We think, given the size of our business at the moment, and yes, big turnover, but relatively small footprint of locations, we're well and truly in a good spot to not need to grow a large head office team around us and really utilize the strength and experience of the team around us.
Yeah, right. So at this stage, obviously, you've got a very strong concept behind Bells. Are there plans to be switching this up in the different locations or diversifying the brand in any way? Or are you trying to avoid diluting the special and unique experience that you have at the moment in terms of your boutique offering?
Great question. Love that one. Look, I think the key thing that is very different in every location, but when you look at them together, there's a similar vernacular or lens, is the fit out. So the experience that we give people, we want to be passionate about table service. We want those venues to look different because we want them to feel right for the communities and the locations they're in. Bondi Beach has 4 kilometres of natural timber lining the walls and the ceilings. That's really different from Circular Quay in the city, which actually has a chromed ceiling. So there's language that's similar. We want them to feel different. Other and outside that, we want to ensure the food offer is really consistent in every location we're at, because we kind of see that as our bread and butter. That's our thing. We don't want to dilute any quality of that. Or sort of divert focus. From a beverage perspective, though, I think that's where we've always had an approach where if you're in Sydney, we've got Rish's as a can. We also support breweries like Bondi Brewery. When you go into Melbourne, you've got Carlton Draft on tap in one of our city venues. So our beverage list responds to that locality. Our fit outs respond to locality, and then the food offer or our core product offer is consistent across all Bells.
Amazing. And I'm glad to hear that. The food offering is not changing. So at this stage, have you landed on any investor rewards for this offer that's coming out next week for those who dine in at Bells and love it so much?
We definitely have, Emily, and I must say it was probably the most fun part of the journey of the Birchal campaign, is working out what we can do to I guess the idea was how do we make people that are investing feel like genuine owners, irrespective of the investment level they're putting in. So there is a really exciting, we're calling the investor perks or owner perks line coming up. What I can say is an investor or an owner keyring that has a unique number on it. So everyone that will invest will get their own Bells owner keyring, which is pretty exciting. The perks from there include discounts in our venues, respective of the amount people invest. Invitations to our pre-opening parties in our new venues, coming to new product launches and taste testing with us, right up until one of the kind of the weirdest or the most fun ideas is an owner jacket. So if we think about those people that own football teams, they've got those big bombers that 0-1 owner. We're doing a short run of owner jackets to ensure, I guess, firstly, that people's pride for our brand, they can wear it and feel it. But also when they come into our venues, they can really feel like they are part of it. They're not just an investor and it's a small thing on the side. It's really a part of their lifestyle that we want them to celebrate.
Yeah, it feels like it would be rude not to invest with those rewards. Absolutely amazing. So at this stage, what do you feel like are the key risks that could prevent Bells from meeting any of your targets and goals?
Look, obviously, the economy, both global and local economy, are things that we don't control. If every business inherently has risks in it. I think part of what we are confident about in Bells is we're established. We've got that 9 years track record, and in creating that current model we've banked those 9 years of learnings. In terms of real risks, though, like any business, risks come in the form of anything that the economy throws at us, which we can't control. We're really comfortable from a risk mitigation strategy that we've delivered on everything that would consider a risk operationally, reputationally, or in terms of our supply chain. But in saying that, like I said, every business has some inherent risk to it that we just can't control.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair enough. So beyond your great service and uniqueness of your venues, what would you say sets you apart from other Nashville hot chicken joints?
Look, I think if you're talking about Nashville hot chicken specifically, I mean, in Australia, there aren't many that are the size or the scale of what we do. They tend to play in the market of being product-led, more in that sort of QSR space, which is smaller format, more for a takeaway market, a little bit of dine-in. Bell's is really and truly a sort of a premium casual dining brand. I think that's the big differentiator. You know, lots of people can serve fried chicken, booze, non-alcoholic drinks, but I think the magic of Bell's is the way we do it and the way we bring it together. You know, every consideration from the scallop placemat, which becomes your placemat when you eat, to the way our team engage with you, to the Bell's Hot Radio that streams through the radio station, our way of, I guess, what you'd sort of call, you know, any guest complaint resolution is unique to our business. So we really look at what Bell's delivers as a true sort of hospitality or restaurant standard. And I think if you look in the market around us, and, you know, there's some great players also producing some amazing hot chicken. We really think we own the dining space of hot chicken. But we also know our brand has the ability and the strength to translate both takeaway and dining.
Amazing. And how would you say your chicken compares to hot chicken in Nashville? How authentic is it?
Look, authenticity is a slippery slope. We would never put a label on what we do and say that it's authentic Nashville style fried chicken. Again, the reason we do it, or we wouldn't do it, is not because we're not passionate about what we do, but we've refined our flavour profile for an Australian palate. We're in Australia, not Nashville. And equally, if we were in Nashville doing it, we'd probably have it aligned to a Nashville palate. I think Nashville would probably have a spicier palate to what we do. I think our food is slightly dialed down for an Australian taste bud. But look, like I said, I think the biggest difference is our product's designed for a market in Little Australia, and Nashville's designed for a market in Nashville.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I know that you explained a little bit earlier why the Sydney venues closed. Why did the Richmond and Windsor venues close in Melbourne?
The Richmond and Windsor were prior to my time in Bell's. My understanding of it when I took the business over was they were again that QSR format, that sort of smaller format. If I look back through the P&Ls for those businesses to understand where I think they potentially went wrong, they were again similar to Tramjets and Glen, that sort of $1 to $1.5 million top line perspective. And like I said, for lots of businesses, especially in the QSR space, that revenue's fine. You can make some profit out of it, and it's a good business if you have a lot of them. I guess my passion for the strategy for Bell's, which we've embarked on, was to have a smaller footprint of venues that generated 2 to 3 times the revenue of what a smaller footprint venue would be. And again, a profitability level that enabled us to take that profit and grow faster, and use all of our time and resources in a smaller number of locations rather than a lot of smaller ones.
Yeah, fantastic. Have you considered any regional locations for Bell's?
Yeah, look, definitely consider regional locations. There's a lot of suburbs and a lot of regions that pop up regularly. I think part of the challenge we have is we want to ensure that we've got that really strong footprint in key states. Sort of being Sydney and Melbourne, we've already got great brand traction. You know, Bondi proves that we can open in existing states and trade profitably really fast. Higher risk in terms of new states or regional areas. But in saying that, we're really comfortable that our model translates to be able to do that. I think, like I said earlier, you know, we see an ability to grow to sort of, you know, 40 plus venues. If you did 40 venues in Sydney, you'd kill the city with Nashville hot chicken and loud music. So I think definitely as part of hitting that broader and sort of more medium to long-term growth strategy would be looking more regional as well.
Awesome. Are you looking to extend your hours currently to cater to people who want chicken 24/7?
I would love to be open 24/7, genuinely. The reason we don't is really out of respect for our team. So we're pretty passionate about the people that we have in our business. 24/7 is a tough one. We have extended our hours in Bondi. We're sort of trialing a later close, sort of 10:30. And we'll always look to adapt based on where general sort of market demand goes. But in terms of 24-hour Nashville style hot chicken, that won't be Bell's in the short term.
Fair enough. So do you think that going forward, your pricing will be an issue due to the state of the economy while consumers are opting for slightly cheaper options?
Look, Bells is the busiest it's ever been in the current economy, and we believe that's purely because of our value proposition. So we believe, irrespective of necessarily the price you pay, what people are getting is a really great value experience. So where previously they might have gone to that sort of neighbourhood restaurant level that I talked about for a date night or for a celebration, they can come to Bells, get the same service experience, playlist interaction with someone looking after them, but for a significantly lower price point. We have ensured that we continue to remain competitive. So as prices in our supply chain have increased and we've increased prices of our retail, we've also ensured we've got smaller portions available if people want to go smaller and cheaper, which was a strategic decision probably 2 months ago we embarked on. So I guess the key one for us is we're really busy. We know there's really strong demand. We're also ensuring, I guess, that we've got options for people that don't want to spend at the level they've previously spent at.
Yeah, it's great to have that kind of flexibility, I'm sure. So I know that you mentioned before that you haven't been with Bells since its inception. Can you explain a little bit behind the team who began Bells? Are any of them still on board, or is it a completely different team now?
Yeah, great question. So look, from a management perspective, none of the existing founders or team are in the business anymore. It was founded by 2 chefs and a maitre d' in 2014 who were part of the journey for a long time. When I came on board, which was 2021, Morgan McGlone was our chef, and we parted ways with Morgie into, I think, 22. He went on to do a couple of awesome spots in Sydney as well. We still consider him the godfather of Bells, or the godfather of chicken, and we still love him like a friend, but he's on the business day to day. From an investor perspective, there are a few investors that have been part of Bells for longer. So some investors invested in Bells back in 2018 and have been through the ebbs and flows of the business since then. But from a leadership perspective, the team that we have in Bells now are new leaders. Marilyn, who's our head of operations in Sydney, though, has been with the business almost 5 years. So she's grown with it, but she definitely has the tenure in the business past my own.
Yeah, brilliant. It's good to see that it's still going well, even past its conception, which is great. So we've had a few questions around whether Bells would venture into the shopping mall space. Is that something that you guys have considered, being in a food court?
A good question again. I think that if you were to look at tram sheds as an example, you'd probably classify tram sheds as an urban shopping centre. So not the same scale as a larger one. That's not to say that shopping centres wouldn't work. There's some incredible shopping centres, the likes of Chadstone, which is just huge in terms of scale. If Bells was to look at shopping centres, we'd really look for, again, sites where we can do that similar model. So, 200 square metres, significant presence, build it out to feel like a restaurant within the space as opposed to just another operator in a line. But look, from our perspective, growth is really focused on the right locations and sort of writing nothing off. But I guess also, like I said, learning from past experiences, we would be more cautious around that sort of really competitive mix of lots of operators in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you get these new shareholders on board, what are your plans to keep them updated throughout the year?
So that we do quarterly reporting with our current shareholders, which is a pretty comprehensive pack. We talk about things around our brand health, around what's happening in the business from a product or a strategy perspective, and definitely looking at sharing that with all shareholders that come on the journey.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm sure it's music to everybody's ears. So currently, who does your marketing and what does the marketing plan look like? Are you doing it internally? Are you with an agency? And what's the split between paid and sponsored content versus organic posts on social media?
Great question. So look, I'm incredibly passionate about brand Bells. Most people will be surprised to know that I personally still run the Bells Instagram, primarily because I'm such a control freak of the brand and the integrity of how we, I guess turn up and how we grow. As we've grown, especially over the last 12 months, we've started working with a few different agencies. So we have a little bit of both. We've got a graphic designer in-house who ensures that everything that we produce is really schmicking on the money from a brand perspective. We also work with some larger agencies around how we tell the larger brand story as we turn up to new states like Adelaide, for example. But to date, we haven't invested nearly as significantly in brand as other brands would, primarily because we've got such a great following in our restaurants that they organically grow the brand really strong. Talking to the paid versus non-paid, look, it's only been the last 3 months that we've engaged in any digital advertising, the capital raise being one, and one other campaign that we've embarked on. They've delivered exceptional results for us. From an EOI perspective, the number of people that have submitted EOIs is outstanding. And we'll always look at using paid digital, but for Bells, we're really big on the authenticity of our brand. And so there's a balance between going out there and selling yourself too hard and pushing our presence more from an organic or an authentic perspective.
Yeah, fantastic. So at this stage, you're obviously running 3 significant larger venues. What's the operating model? Is it differing between the venues, and is there a differing margin analysis for those venues?
In terms of the current ones, let me just jump back to the screen again. So look, in terms of the current venues, the model venue is effectively Fitzroy, Melbourne, Barangaroo, Circular Quay and Bondi Beach. They're all very similar scale. In terms of our venue revenue, Fitzroy and Elizabeth Street, I've outlined there for FY23. They trade circa that $3 million mark. Circular Quay is still ramping up. That's a venue that we opened in March this year. Circular Quay, different from Bondi Beach. Bondi Beach was always going to be huge from day one, just given its proximity to really strong foot traffic day and night. But in terms of our model going forward, they're identical in terms of how we run them. And we still chase the same model, which is that sort of 3 million top line, target 20% EBITDA at a venue level. And that's effectively where we believe these venues will all trade at.
Fantastic. At the moment, are there any conflicts with the other original co-founder who started Hot Chicken Project?
No, none that I'm aware of.
That's always good.
Yeah.
And Joss, do you have any a little bit of background about where you've come from, what you've done previously, and what you can bring to the Bells Hot Chicken business as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I guess my background's predominantly in growth hospitality. I'm incredibly passionate about growth. I can operate a really good business, but I'm better at growing good businesses. Directly before Bells, I spent close to a year in CUB Ventures team. So CUB, the large beer company, has a ventures team that effectively looks after their investments in craft partners. So the likes of Four Pines, Bolter, those sort of acquisitions along the way. Prior to that, I spent close to 2 years in a fast-growing co-working business called Hub Australia, which is sort of the leading co-working provider around a hospitality-led service. And prior to that, I spent a long time in my home country, New Zealand. Probably most notably, I was part of a large coffee company where we scaled from roughly 20 cafes to 40. And we had a model that worked right across the country of right across the country of New Zealand that we also took offshore as well. So I guess, in summary, my passion's hospitality and growth hospitality. And absolutely for Bells, I've been passionate in the last 3 years about driving that model, creating something really exceptional that everyone can be part of and looking to absolutely explode it from here.
It sounds like Bells is in safe hands, so it's always comforting.
There's definitely great people around. I mean, I think talking through some of the other people, my business partner in Bells is Peter Laylor, who's a chartered accountant by trade, and he established and owns Blue Rock, which is an entrepreneurial advisory practice. Our other partners and advisory board members are sort of equal stature and experience. So we're really passionate about ensuring that we're not just a great brand, but we're also a really good commercial business.
Yeah, fantastic. What would you consider to be the key opportunity that you're most excited about for Bells?
The key opportunity. Look, I mean, outside of growing new venues, I think the opportunity is bringing Bells to other states around Australia. We know the reputation we have in opening the likes of Bondi Beach. We can be really proud that when we turn up, people know who we are and they get really excited by us because we are Bells. I think probably that key piece that I'm really excited for is opening in a new market where we get to bring people on the journey of what Bells is from day dot, which I think is really exciting.
That's awesome. In terms of your goals for employment, with the protracted labour shortages, how do you plan to achieve this?
Look, employment or labour is always a challenge in hospitality. The other challenge to it is award rates typically increase every year. This year was no different. And there was quite a large increase to the award rates. In saying that, looking at last week's results, we trade pretty close to that 30% labour market model. And I think, again, part of it is we're passionate about hiring really great people and setting them up for success and really leading with those people. But look, in terms of our ability to manage labour or hire great people, I think our track record there is strong. Looking at FY23 and the results, again, will be in that offer deck. We drove a really great result there. And so far, year to date, we're going well from both a quality, but also from a cost perspective.
Yeah, fantastic. And I can see we've just got one more. We've got two. Are there plans for a Bells loyalty system?
I was looking at that question that says, can you shout me dinner in Fitzroy at 7:30?
I swear it's not me under a pseudonym.
No, that's a great question.
God bless. I mean, if you want to answer it for Ryan, really put his neck out here. Are there any plans for a Bells loyalty system?
It's definitely something we've looked at. And again, part of what we're trying to balance is what's right to look after guests and what's potentially gimmicky that feels a little bit like it could cheapen the brand. We have some things in the works around loyalty, but nothing in terms of a significant program we're launching in the short term. But we definitely know to look after our guests going forward, looking after them in venues by far the best way to ensure they come back. But we would love to look at that in the future as well.
Yeah, 100%. And what's your favourite spice level at Bells? How often do you eat at Bells?
Those are great. Those are brilliant questions as well. Look, with my Kiwi palate, I can't handle a lot of heat. So Traveller's genuinely my tap out. Traveller's sort of 2 parts not hot to 1 part hot. I genuinely, if I look at Sex Panther, our spiciest spice, my eyes will swell up. So I'm a Traveller guy through and through. And look, in terms of how often I get to the venues, I love being in our venues. So I'm in there far too often. But I do ensure that I keep to my Traveller spice every time I'm in there.
That's some good advice. And are you tenders over wings or wings over tenders?
Look, I'm a tenders guy, and I feel like I should be a wing person because I'm a bit of a foodie and I love those sort of offcuts that are the juicier parts. But I think with a tender, you're straight in, business end, straight up, you're there.
This is good to know. In terms of upfront costs to get a location up and running, does it vary from venue to venue?
Yeah, it definitely varies. I mean, for Bondi, we acquired an existing site that Fonda had. So we did something different, which was obviously we paid some money for that, which meant our fit out costs was slightly reduced as a result of that. But typically Bells venues cost somewhere around 1.2 to 1.4 million in capital costs. So it is a higher capital cost than a QSR model. But again, we're really passionate about our ROI for that investment is well and truly in line with expectation on the business model we've got.
Fantastic. So it looks like we've answered all those questions, all 68 of them. It was quite a few today. So thank you so much for everybody getting so involved, and it just goes to show how passionate everybody is about Bells as a business. So it's just heartwarming from my perspective to see how loved it is and how involved the community is. And that's the beauty of crowdfunding.
So super exciting, super exciting.
So I'll send this around to everybody so they've got a copy of the webinar in case they have missed it, and keep your eyes peeled for email communications for when the offer does go live. If you do have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Joss via the Birchal platform. So it's birchal.com, and you can check out all of our campaigns that we have live at the moment. But thank you so much, Joss. It was absolutely amazing hearing from you and really appreciate your time.
That's a pleasure. Great to be here.
Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.